Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. Welcome to Islam Works. You know, in the world in which we live today, there's so many things happening. The global warming and the pandemic and all of the things, you know, the behavior of people towards one another. People trying to bring back the teachings of Adolf Hitler. People trying to bring back all types of things that are harmful and destructive to the overall well-being and the moral dignity of human beings. And with all the stuff that you have happening, do you have a neighbor who's a Muslim? Do you see your neighbor when he goes out, he comes home, he sees his family, how his family greets him, or maybe he has a business, or maybe he's just somebody, or she is somebody that you see walking in the streets. And it's not that they're unconcerned, but it's that we have the attitude of La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. And we believe that everything that has happened is a result of one or two things. If it's good, it's something that God has given us. It's from the goodness that Allah has shed in His mercy. And when I say Allah, those of you who are Christian, don't get upset. I'm talking about the same God that you say is the father of Jesus, okay? It's just that, you know, in Arabic, the word for God is Allah, okay? In Tagalog, the word for God is Dios. Every language. In Hebrew, the word for God is, I can't recall what it is. So many different languages, so many different words for God. And these are things that we have to understand. And out of all of this, those of us who believe in God, we understand that there's a judgment day coming, a time when we are going to answer for what we've done in this life. Look at the history. Let's see what Muslims have done. Myself, I'm a convert to Islam, as is our brother Suleiman Shillingford. I'm from New York, USA. Brother Suleiman is from London, by way of Dominica. I've never met Brother Suleiman before I came here, but I've met Muslims from many places, from China, from Japan, from Russia, from Uzbekistan, from Afghanistan, from Pakistan. I've met Muslims from all parts of Africa, and we all have one thing, and we have many things in common, but the basics that we have in common is when we say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the servant of Allah. But we also, when we live and we go about our daily routines in life, we use Islam. We use Islam as a means of maintaining our relationship with Almighty God. And this program, Islam Works, is just about that, how we use Islam. Maybe there'll be some benefit to other Muslims, or maybe it'll be some benefit to people who are not Muslims. So, our guest brother Suleiman is going to talk to us about some of the circumstances under which he has been using Islam in London and in Dominica. You know, one thing about Dominica I just want to mention, there was a leader in Dominica by the name of Eugenia Charles. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
And I remember this is years ago, maybe 25, 30, 35 years ago. She once said that Islam will never come to Dominica. Brother Suleiman, you want to take it from there?
Yes, well, first of all, I must thank you for inviting me to your program. And yeah, and Alhamdulillah, Islam is entrenched in Dominica right now. There are many Muslims there, and there are about 3 masajids place where Muslims pray.
Now, what is a masajid?
A masajid is the house of Allah.
But there's another word that's been used for it, though, isn't there? Mosques or mosque?
Yes, in
But
English.
there's no such word as mosque or mosques in the Arabic language.
No, no.
Okay, so I'm just saying that, you know, for our audience, they'll understand,
Yeah.
because you're using the proper name for the houses of worship of the
Yes,
Muslim
it's a
Ummah.
house of worship. Yeah, so we have 3 of them now, and there are many Muslims now. I was the second person to embrace Islam, to convert to Islam in Dominica, and now there are a few hundred Muslims, several hundred Muslims there now. So we can see that the words of Eugenia Charles was just, from herself, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he had a different plan than Eugenia Charles, and his plan was to spread Islam in Dominica. And the Muslims from the original people who existed there, the Caribs. The Caribs were the original people of the Caribbean, and who were almost exterminated by the Europeans when they came, but they still exist in Dominica today. And many of them have become Muslims also. And there's a masjid in the Carib Reserve. Just like you have the American Indian reserves, there's a Carib Reserve in Dominica where most of the Caribs live. And there are many Muslims there also.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How do they get along with the other Muslims? They get along with no difficulty?
Yeah, there's no problem, because Islam is one, and the Quran is one, and the Prophet's Sunnah is one. So the Carib Muslims, they get along fine. On Eid Day, that's the day of celebration for after the month of Ramadan fasting.
Okay, so that would be the Eid al-Fitr.
Eid al-Fitr, and also after Eid al-Adha, which is the Eid of the big sacrifice, where the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. Yeah, the Caribs, we all come together, and they celebrate together. The local
Do you have
Muslims.
any, for instance, in the United States, the type of like my people are there. My ancestors were forced or kidnapped from Africa, literally kidnapped, forced to come to the United States and to work for free and to have what they call chattel slavery, wherein the children of the slaves would be slaves. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because many of the Africans who were brought into the U.S., Afrocentric people, all right, were thought that by accepting Christianity, that they would be welcomed into the fold of Christianity. And come to find out that even today in America, and I know in other places as well, but I'm from America, the church is divided by race. Okay, you have the Episcopalian Church, you have the Methodist Church, the Mormons, which the mainstream Christians don't consider the Mormons to be Christians, but some other Christians say they're a part of Christendom. And it was only in the 60s that the Mormons allowed Afrocentric people to have any place in the Mormon church. And you find so many aspects of Christianity like this. And they even had a slave Bible, a Bible that was written specifically for people who were slaves who had converted to Christianity. And now one of the biggest churches you have in the United States among the Afrocentric people is called the AME Church, African Methodist Episcopalian, because the Methodists and the Episcopalians do not allow the Africans to come in. Do you have anything like that amongst Muslims? You're a person who's had a broad range of experience. Now, you in Dominica, you see the Caribs who have accepted Islam, the people the people from Africa, Afrocentric people, mixed race people have accepted Islam. Then you go to London, okay, and you run into a whole other experience. Have you seen anything, people saying, oh, this is for white people, this is for black people, is that any part of mainstream Islam?
It's not. Why? Because Islam is the religion of Tawheed. Tawheed meaning the belief in only one God. And because of this tawheed, or belief in one God, you find Muslims wherever they are in the world, in Africa, in Asia, in the Caribbean, in America, they all have the same belief. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, brought one message, which is his sunnah. And in Dominica, it's the same thing. I mean, I grew up as a Christian myself in the Catholic Church, and it's amazing that even I went back there recently in the summer, and I remember after the morning prayer, the prayer before sunrise. That's our first prayer in the morning. After the prayer, I took my wife up on a hill, okay, that overlooks the city, just to show the view, of the city. And there, whilst we were there, this man came with his young daughter, and on that hill at the top, there is a statue of Christ.
In Dominica?
In Dominica, on a
I thought
cross.
they only did that in Brazil.
Exactly. It looked just like the same one in Brazil, in Rio, right? Overlooking the city. It's not as big, but it's there, all in white, overlooking. And this guy came, and I looked at him, and he was actually praying to this piece of stone. Okay? And I told my wife, look at this. I used to be part of this religion. My mom, as a boy, we used to make pilgrimage to that same cross, because it was erected in 1928. It was the first, they call it the precast concrete sort of design in Dominica. And this young man, he was about in his 30s, I guess, was actually praying to this piece of stone. And I said, look how Islam, okay, has took that away from us, okay? Because Muslims don't pray to stones, all right? We only pray to Allah, one God. And that is why wherever you go in the world, okay, you can see that the Muslims are doing the same thing, okay? There are no images in the mosques, and there's no image of Allah. And also that's why there's no image of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah, who's the slave of Allah. And we don't worship him. So alhamdulillah, that's one of the beauties of Islam that we cherish a lot.
How has this particular aspect of Islam helped you personally on your everyday life?
Well, Islam helps Muslims, including myself, in so many different ways. The first thing is this message of Tawheed. We believe in only one God. Allah is one. When we say La ilaha illallah, okay, we mean that there's no one to be worshipped but Allah. So, as I showed you before, it changed my whole life. Before, we used to worship these idols, these statues, and we used to think that Isa, Jesus, was also a God or the Son of God. So my whole perspective of the Creator has changed. And that's one of the ways, Islam has helped, and I use this in my daily life. Islam has helped in so many ways. I mean, even in the course of da'wah, calling people to Islam. My brother, who's 83 years old, he accepted Islam just about 3-4 months ago. He's 83.
Alhamdulillah.
And I saw him this summer when I went to visit, and he was the main cause I went to visit because of him. And he told me, he said, Sulaiman, you remember in 1989, that's a long time ago, that's over 30 years ago, you gave me a copy of the Quran, the Holy Quran. And he brought it out for me, and he showed me the Quran. And in the inside cover of the Quran, I had written to my brother Fitz from Sulaiman, and the exact date, the 12th of December 1989, it was still there. And he said, you know what happened? In the hurricane about 6 years ago, there was a hurricane that destroyed most of the houses in Dominica. It destroyed his home also. He said, Sulaiman, all my books got destroyed except the Quran. That was one of the miracles that happened, that also helped to make him become a Muslim. Can you imagine that every single book of his was destroyed in the hurricane?
Except that one.
Except one book, which is the Holy Quran. And he showed it to me. Here's the book. It's still here with me. And you know, so we use Islam in so many different ways in our life. Like, for example, one of the things that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said is that on the Day of Judgment, one of the things that Allah will question you about is your health. One of the things that you'll be questioned about is your health, because Allah gave us good health. What did we do with it? So this hadith, or this saying of the Prophet Muhammad, has motivated me to try to keep fit. In my old age, I still try to keep fit by going exercising, by riding, by walking with my family, and things like that. So this is one of the ways that we use Islam. Whatever the Quran says or whatever the Prophet Muhammad said, we try to implement it in our lives. Or the food that we eat, we make sure that we eat healthy food, all because of what the Prophet ﷺ said about eating, the right things, don't eat haram, but eat only the halal foods. So many things. Coming to Saudi Arabia, we have lived for about 25 years now. It's because of Islam. Islam says one of the best places on earth you could live is in the land of the Muslims, the land of Tawheed, the land where there's no shirk, worshipping idols. And you find that in Saudi Arabia. You cannot find anywhere where people are worshipping idols or statues. Okay? And so that motivated me to come and spend so much time, and I've learned so much being here. Maybe I hope that answered some of your questions.
It sure did, and it also brought something to mind, because when you were mentioning about the importance of what we eat, and one time I was reading Quran tafsir, and I noticed that in many places in Quran, actually I started writing them down. In more than 250 different places, Allah talks about eating, what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, what's lawful, what's not lawful, so forth. More than 250 places in Quran, Allah mentions this. And you were mentioning about the such things that you brought to mind about we don't worship statues. And I think about the false ideas that people have. I remember before I became a Muslim, I used to go to Hindu places, all right, because the restaurants they had, okay. And I went into one time. I took my son with me, my older son. He was a baby then, or he's young. And he saw this statue. It was a blue woman with 6 arms, and they had feathers in the hair and everything. And the feathers blew with the wind or something. And one of the people said, "Oh." So my son said, "Dad, look, the feathers are moving." And so some woman, she starts talking to the crowd. "He says that the statue moved, And what I'm saying is that there's a psychosis that goes with this. And in the Muslim world, the psychology, like they have today, psychologists and so forth and so on, psychiatrists and medicine to change your mind and all this stuff, it's not working, okay? We never had these problems throughout 1,442 years of our history.
Exactly.
So that's what you brought, some of the stuff you brought to mind.
Yeah, exactly. As a young man growing up, I wasn't Muslim. And although my mother was very religious, and she would take me to church and everything, but as I grew up, you got into all the wrong things in life. You got into, going out, and partying and all the evil that comes with that, and but when you became a Muslim, you realize all these things, has no benefit. All the stuff that you used to do as a non-Muslim Christian had no benefit at all. And this helped to actually channel your life in the right direction. Yeah. So you became more religious. You became more of someone who seek knowledge, so that you become a better person. You treat human beings better. And that's what Islam does. It just changes your life.
Yeah.
And that's so important, you know.
It is important,
Yeah.
and I thank you for those statements, brother, and for
Yeah.
bringing these things to mind, and and showing how Islam actually helps the society overall through individuals that are within the society,
Yeah.
right, who are practicing Islam, inshallah, in accord with the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad,
Yeah.
and thereby making not just their society, the Muslim society, better, but also the overall society, and keeping them in the mindset of that society in line with what's real and what's important. And with that, I want to say that these are some of the things that we as Muslims have, who are coming out of different lifestyles, can compare and say as to why we've made the changes in our lives and how it's made our lives better. And that's why we say Islam works. Peace be unto you.